The 2024 season is set to bring some massive changes to the drivers' market, and with this in mind, the entire landscape of the sport could change in a matter of months. Although it's hard to top what Alonso caused by his move to Aston Martin back in 2022, certain names like Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, as well as Carlos Sainz have the potential to disrupt the long-term plans of their teams and to open the eyes of their rivals. So with this in mind, who are the drivers we should be paying close attention to in 2024? And what are the most likely outcome of the upcoming silly season? Well, we'll start with the most obvious one, and that is the Perez-Ricciardo situation. Obviously, Sergio Perez currently holds the hottest seat on the grid, and that isn't without any particular reason. He failed to perform at the desired level, given the fact that his teammate won 19 out of the 22 venues that the sport visited in 2023. To top that off, the difference between Verstappen and Perez was bigger than the one between Perez and De Vries, who scored 0 points and raced in only 10 events in 2023, only making his case worse. Although Perez managed to pick up the pace after the 5-race streak of not making it to Q3 and scoring a podium finish once in Austria during this dreadful period, some weird races like the ones in Japan and Qatar did open his eyes about whether or not his future lies with Red Bull. The fact that he had to fight for P2 until the very end of the season goes to show that this is not an issue Red Bull wants to deal with now that the grid is about to be a lot closer in 2024. Christian Horner has opened up on the future of Perez, and while it seems like he has a secured seat in 2024, the Brit has left the question open beyond 2025, and from what we can hear, it's everything but certain. In fact, even the 2024 season could see Perez be sacked from Red Bull and replaced with Ricciardo if he starts with his troublesome form and the Red Bull rivals find performance during the winter period, which is something they promised to do. Elaborating on the current situation, Horner went on to say, "We've got loads of options and I think it's Checo's seat to lose. He's the one that we're backing. He is our 2024 driver. And if he does a great job next year, there's no reason that we wouldn't extend him into 2025. But it'd be purely based on what he achieves over what will be a large part of the season. I think being Max's teammate is tough, and I think that you've got to have a certain resolve and character to be prepared to go up against Max. But as the field converges, it's inevitable that you want your two cars as close together as you can achieve. With Checo, his race pace and his racing has been very strong on many occasions. It's his performance in qualifying that is probably the area that he needs to focus on over the winter. Now, the fact that Ricciardo out-qualified Perez in Mexico speaks volumes about where the Mexican's biggest liability is. And now that AlphaTauri is posed to be a lot more competitive in 2024, considering the fact that they'll borrow as many parts from Red Bull as possible, including the rear suspension, is definitely spelling bad news for Perez. As of now, we can definitely say that he's in the position of De Vries was in the beginning of 2023, with the difference that Perez knows his seat is in danger, while Nick had no idea Ricciardo would drive a monster lap in Silverstone, and that would be enough for him to be put in the AlphaTauri seat for the remainder of the season. But this is where things get interesting. Ricciardo had different offerings for other backmarker teams, and he denied all of them with one single purpose ahead of himself: compete for wins and podiums, and that's exactly what he's currently aiming at. According to the Aussie, the dream scenario would be to retire next to Max Verstappen, and after his statement about the lap in Silverstone that saved his F1 career, it being close to Verstappen's time, it's not a secret that he'll be considered as one of the top candidates for this spot. Elaborating on this matter even further, Ricciardo went on to say, "I'm not going to put a day or date on it, but coming back into the Red Bull family, that is the dream. Ending my career with a Red Bull drive will be the perfect way to finish. Not that I'm looking at the end, but if I get back there, I will certainly make sure I'll finish there." With Horner confirming that Ricciardo is a Red Bull driver, despite him being in an AlphaTauri suit, I guess you already know where this talk is going. Who would replace him in the Italian squad? The name of Liam Lawson has been popping up more frequently than the other candidates, and considering his amazing 5-race stint in F1 as Ricciardo's replacement, scoring P9 on a race that he participated for the first time in his career, Singapore, then I guess it would be the right choice after all. Horner also affirmed that Red Bull have wider plans for Lawson beyond 2025, but if the train starts moving from 2024 onwards, then I guess he would have to saddle much earlier and prepare to be Tsunoda's teammate from the second half of the 2024 season as well. Now, apart from the Red Bull AlphaTauri saga, we have another team that still has no idea where they're headed from 2025 onwards, at least with one of their drivers, and that's Ferrari. Even though Leclerc is still to renew his contract beyond 2024, it's highly believed that the finesses are being worked on a major contract that would bring him around 50 million per year, with additional bonus if he remains with Ferrari until 2029. On the other hand, similar talks have not even been started with Sainz, who has constantly emphasized how important it is for him to enter the 2024 season knowing where he'll drive in 2025. Elaborating on this matter even further, the Spaniard went on to say, "My goal is to start 2024 knowing where I'm going to race in 2025. I wouldn't like to start the season without knowing my next destination. My priority is to stay at Ferrari for many more years. I'm very happy, both parties are very happy, and the objective is to continue, but we have to agree, and we have these 3 months until the next race to reach that agreement. Obviously, I want to renew, and I'd like to renew for more than 1 year, and not just 2. You know my intentions, and honestly, I feel perfectly valued by Fred and by the whole Ferrari family in general. I feel loved. Therefore, I will renew if I feel that way and I feel that I'm valued." On the other hand, we don't know if Ferrari feel like Sainz is a long-term solution for their plans, whereas they have been perfectly clear as to where they stand with Leclerc. So this is definitely a ground on which these two sides could battle and could very well determine to split their ways, and one team that would use Sainz's services the most at these times is the newcomer Audi. Although Sauber, the team that would race in 2024 and 2025, is not really the most wanted destination for the Spaniard in the 2025 season, it's very likely that he would move with pleasure in the team that his dad is absolutely crushing the Rally Championship with. Audi would highly utilise the services and experience of Sainz in order to build a race-winning car, and as we witnessed many times throughout the smooth operator's tenure in Ferrari, he does not lack commandership and intelligence, which are the two necessary ingredients in order to build a championship-winning team. He could be paired with Fernando Alonso, as the CEO of Audi, Andreas Seidel, said that he would choose Alonso if he's free, regardless of the fact that he would be well in his 45th year. But the Spaniard did say that the 24-race calendar would drain his battery out, and if this trend is to continue, he would be looking at an early retirement. So if this is to happen, not only he won't be available for Audi, but he'll be leaving an open seat in Aston Martin, one that is very likely that would be fulfilled by an F2 champion, Felipe Drugovich. While it was believed that Tsunoda was the perfect candidate for this seat, considering the Aston Martin-Honda relationship from 2026 onwards, the Japanese driver made his feelings clear and his intention to remain in the Red Bull family. If this is to happen, then the next big game in the drivers' market would be the Brazilian F2 champion, and it would be quite hard for him to prove next to the owner's son. This would be the perfect opportunity for Stroll to finally have the leadership in the team after being constantly beaten by his teammates, Perez and Alonso most recently. So if we are to see Alonso retire and start yet another silly season just like he did in 2022, this is going to be one of the most interesting things to pay attention to. Now, there are some other drivers who are running out of contract too, but their teams have already stated their intentions to continue the contractual obligations, such as both drivers in Alpine as well as Albon and Sargent in Williams. However, the American driver is not that secured of a pick because he does need a lot to prove himself, especially after his teammate carried Williams to P7 single-handedly and is now understood his worth. If Williams are to keep Albon beyond 2024, they would have to pay a hefty amount of money, which in case they want to do, they might want to look into getting rid of Sargent's contract and bringing another competitive star that could put Williams back in the midfield. Although Albon did give his thoughts as to whether or not Williams is the perfect destination for his long-term F1 career, if Sainz decides to depart from Ferrari, then it's obvious that the Thai driver would be one of the first ones to receive a call from the Maranello team. This would put more pressure on Leclerc to prove himself, and it would provide Albon with the opportunity of a lifetime after he failed to beat Verstappen in the same machinery, a feature that does seem impossible from today's point of view. Of course, we mustn't forget about Haas and the desperate season they had, and it seems like Nico Hülkenberg doesn't have any plans to remain with the American squad if they cannot fix their long-term issues with the reliability of the car. Amid the existential crisis of the American squad, Nico has been related to Audi from 2026 onwards, maybe even in 2025, just to get a feel of the car. But for this to happen, Sauber would also have to be asked, as they do have two drivers they feel particularly happy with. Kevin Magnussen is also very questionable to say the least, especially after the 2023 season he's had, being regularly outperformed by a driver who hasn't raced in a proper F1 season for 3 full years. Obviously, Haas will have a lot on their mind, and it seems like the drivers' lineup is on the top of their to-do list in 2024. But they're not short of options either. Drivers like Oliver Behrman, who is 18 years old and is signed by Ferrari's academy, is one of the hottest names in the F2 Championship so far. So with this in mind, which transfers do you think will happen, and will we see some new names in Formula 1? Let us know in the comments down below.